Spring is in the air, and what a better way to celebrate the season but with this adorable stuffed bunny. Want to learn how to make it? Stay tuned. Hey there, it's Shannon with Gigi's Fabric Shop, home of Juki, Junkies, and Junkies. And I am so excited to sew this little floppy bunny with you guys today in our step-by-step tutorial. But before we do, I wanted to take a moment and introduce one of our new designers that we're going to feature today, and that is Parker on the Porch. She's a fantastic designer, and I've been stitching out her designs, and they are stunning, like this little bunny. I promise you, once you make one of these, you're not going to want to stop. She has so many different stuffies on her website that you're going to fall in love. So if you're ready, let's jump over and talk about the materials needed to make this stuffed bunny. The first thing you're going to want to do is head over to the Parker on the Porch and find this listing and download it. And then you're going to pick the size that you want that's going to accommodate the hoop that you're going to be sewing in. She has a variety of sizes, so make sure you pick the design that's going to match your hoop. You want to print out the directions and you'll be ready to go. Make sure you download them to your USB. Okay, so those are the essentials. Next up, let's talk about stabilizer. We're going to actually be using two types of stabilizer today for our project because I'm actually going to be sewing with minky and quilting cotton. And when you sew with minky, we don't want our stitches to sink down in our fabric. So I'm actually going to be using water-soluble stabilizer on the top, which is going to really make all of this satin stitches and all this design really pop and not sink into the minky. So we're going to start with our Tearaway Easy from Solvay, and then we're going to move over to the water-soluble stabilizer when we do this embroidery. Don't worry, this is a step-by-step tutorial for this project. Next up are just some essentials, are scissors. And I'm actually going to be using two types of scissors today. These are Karen Buckley, and these are probably two of my favorite scissors. This is actually going to help trim around the bunny when it's complete. And these scissors, which if you follow me, are really my perfect scissors. They are a little curved, they are small and mighty, and these are what I use for applique. This is what we're going to be trimming away our cotton for our applique. So make sure you've got some good scissors available. Next up is you're going to want a point turner. The pointing tool is fantastic to make sure that we have flipped over our bunny and our ears. So it is a requirement. If you have a chopstick, that will be okay too. And I love this little purple thing. I have a purple thing. I use it all the time, and I use this to actually pick away the water soluble. You'll see that a little bit later. Next up is our 505 spray. Because we are working with minky, I like to just spray a dab down on this to make sure my minky isn't going to shift on my stabilizer. Next up is Best Press. I always use this when I spray my fabric to make sure that she is starched slightly and no wrinkles. I love that it provides a little bit extra support in my fabric when I embroider. I always use this for all of my embroidery projects. Okay, so next up is fabric. So the beautiful thing with these bunnies is all the opportunities of the styles that you can make with these bunnies. You can do them all minky if you want. Some of these that I've made, I did coordinating cotton, quilting cotton on the ears and the belly. So you can do cotton just as I've done, or you can do the entire thing in minky. And so it allows you a lot of personalization, and I love that each one can be a little bit different. So today I'm going to actually be sewing with minky. It's more of a pink color today, along with these hearts. Now you'll see that my hearts are directional, and so we'll just want to make sure that I'm going to be placing those perfectly in my hoop for the bunny. All right, next up is glide thread. So you can see here, we don't have much thread for our projects, but we will be using glide thread. You guys know I love glide thread for its strength, but also for its sheen. And I picked out some fantastic colors that I thought were gonna match my bunny perfectly, along with this cotton fabric and this really cute fabric. So we've got gray for the eyelashes, I have some pink for the cheeks, and then this really nice mint green, it's called pistachio, is gonna be my border of the bunny. So make sure you've got some great threads that complement the fabrics that you are selecting. You're gonna need polyfill to stuff your bunny, so make sure you've got that available too. And you'll see here at the bottom, once we stuff our bunny, I like to fold the edges in and use clips, and you'll see me do this at the end of our project. So quilting clips is definitely a nice convenience if you have those handy. We also sell these on our website. There'll be a link down in the description below. For those of you that maybe don't want to sew the bottom, I am using liquid stitch. You can use hot glue. It is permanent fabric adhesive, and you can just glue right down on the bottom. And truth be told, this is exactly what I used on this little bunny. Next up is fabric tape. I am using Kimberbell fabric tape with my tape dispenser. I will be using this because you'll see in one of the hoopings that I want to make sure the ears are placed perfectly and I don't want them to shift. So fabric tape is really important for this project. All right, last but not least is you're gonna wanna have a frame for your bunny project. Like I said, she has a lot of different sizes that you can choose from. Today we're gonna be actually sewing a 7x11 bunny, which is one of the bigger bunnies, and I'm gonna be using my large mighty hoop. So make sure you grab that hoop and let's head over to the embroidery machine. All right, so before we head over to the embroidery machine, I wanted just to pause and let you know that this is a project that includes 2 hoopings. So that means that you need to make sure that you download, when you select a size, the ears, which is the first hooping that we're going to be doing. And then the second file you need to make sure you download, and the same size, is the bunny body. So this project will be in 2 hoopings. And I just wanted to make sure you guys realize that before we started sewing. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you have those on your USB, and let's head over to the embroidery machine. All right, so remember what I said, our first hooping is the ears. So make sure you have that ready to go. Just for you guys know, I'm sewing a 7x11. And I've got all my threads set up. And so the first stitch is gonna be our placement stitch, and let's get stitching. All right, so we've just stitched our placement stitch, and the next step is to lay our back of our ear. And I'm actually doing a minky. So remember, if you're going to be doing minky, you want to make sure the nap is going the same direction. I like my nap to go up. So we want to make sure that we're placing the minky so that the nap is going in the correct direction. But before we do, I just want to spray a little bit of the 505 temporary spray on my stabilizer. And I mean just a little bit on the ears, just so that my minky isn't going to move. So I'm just going to put that down right over my placement stitch. And I just want to triple check. See, my nap isn't correct. I want to flip it around, and that way my nap is going up, and that's the way I like it. And I'm just going to make sure she's good, and we're going to go back and we're going to stitch this down. All right, so we've laid down our stitch around our ears for our fun minky, and now the next step is to do the inside of our ears. Now here's where you get to really choose what fabric you want. I'm actually going to be using a quilting cotton, but if you want to do minky, that's completely fine. You can do a different color minky, but I'm going to be doing quilting cotton, and I'm actually doing these really cute hearts. They are directional, so I want to make sure that I'm not stitching them this way. I want to make sure that the hearts are going up and down, and so whatever fabric that you are deciding, just make sure that you're putting pretty sides together. And I have my pieces just a little larger just to show you guys when we're sewing through the embroidery machine. So this is going to stitch down, and then we're going to flip the ears inside out. So let's take her back over to the machine. And just like that, our first hooping is complete with our ears. I would just go ahead and recommend just taking your hoop apart and putting that aside. And now what we're going to do is remove our stabilizer. And I am using Tearaway, Sulky Easy Tearaway, and And so we're just gonna take that stabilizer away. And this is why I love the purple thing, because it's maybe those tough places that maybe you can't get into. So we're just gonna remove the stabilizer. And then when we're done, we're gonna actually trim around the ears. Okay, so I've removed the stabilizer and I'm gonna use my Karen Buckley scissors and I'm gonna trim around the ear, the bunny ears, about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm gonna leave just about maybe a 1/2 inch down here at the bottom. This is where we're gonna actually flip the bunny around. So let's get started. All right, so we have our 2 bunny ears cut out. And now what we can do is go ahead and flip them inside out so we can get ready for our next hooping. Just take your time here, especially if you did a smaller bunny. It might be just a little hard to get through, but just take your time and get your turning tool in. This is when you're really gonna want to use it. Alrighty, and just like that, we have our first hooping done with our cute little bunny ears. Let's move on to our second hoop. Before we jump into the second hooping, this is a good opportunity for me to talk about the machine I'm sewing on today. If you're new and haven't subscribed to us yet, let me introduce to you the Juki Tajima Sai. She is a compact embroidery machine and she is full of power. 8 needles, super fast, and it's my go-to machine. I personally own one of these, and she can sew over many layers because you'll see here, the ears go through a lot of layers here, and I don't have to slow down the speed. So we're sewing on the Juki Tajima Sai. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, and I'm happy to answer any of them. And for all of the supplies that we've talked about today, our stabilizer, our turning tools, our fabric, our glide thread, all of those can be available at JukiJunkies.com. And of course, if you're local in Brandon, Florida, come and visit us at Gigi's Fabric Shop. We are happy to see you here. Okay, so we have our second hooping ready to go, and I have all my thread already picked for my little bunny design. The first thing we're going to be doing is our placement stitch for our minky that we're sewing on today. So I am using my pistachio thread, and it's kind of hard to see here, but it did its placement stitch right here. And now we're going to go ahead and put down our minky. Remember, if you are doing minky, you want to make sure the nap is going to be going the same direction as your ears. I'm just going to put a little bit of my 505 spray right here so that my minky doesn't slide. Okay, so we've just laid down our minky and we're ready to stitch down our second stitch, which is going to adhere the minky to the stabilizer. And then we're going to move right into the third placement stitch, which is just going to be for our belly. All right, so we just finished our placement stitch for our belly, and you're probably wondering, why aren't you using the water-soluble stabilizer that you talked about? I promise we will get to it when we actually do this satin stitch around the belly and the eyes, but for right now, I'm not gonna use it, but we're gonna go ahead and I want you to pick up the fabric that you've selected for the belly, and I want you to put it fabric right side up. We're gonna stitch down a placement stitch like an applique, and then we're gonna stitch around before the satin stitch. So if you're using directional fabric, make sure it's in the right direction. And now we're just gonna take our curved scissors and trim around pretty close to the placement stitch. You don't wanna cut that or your fabric is gonna come undone. But let's go ahead and trim all the way around, and then we'll head back to the embroidery machine for that satin stitch. Okay, so now that we've trimmed around our fabric around our applique of our belly, this is when I actually want to use the water soluble, because the rest of the stitches that's going to be on my bunny are going to be the satin stitch around the belly, and then we're going to do the eyes, the nose, and the cheeks. And I don't want my thread to sink down in the minky, and that's why I'm choosing to use water soluble from Sulky, and I'm just going to place it right on top, and we're going to take her back to the machine. So you can see when we're using water-soluble stabilizer, the stitches are actually on top of the fabric. If we weren't using that, the thread would actually sink into the fabric like our placement stitches. This beautiful satin stitch you would not be able to achieve if you weren't using the water soluble. So if you think about kitchen towels, fleece, flannel, the Minky that we're using here today, anything that's going to have that pill to it, your thread has a likelihood of sinking into the fabric, and the water soluble is a must-have to prevent that from happening. All right, guys, we are almost done with our adorable little bunny. Don't you love how her little eyelashes and cheeks are just coming alive? This is such a fun project. So the next stitch is going to be the placement stitch for our ears, and let's get started. Alrighty, so we just stitched our placement stitch here on our little bunny, and these are what we're going to do is put our little ears on. So I've done a little tuck, and I just think it's cute. You don't have to, but I'm going to actually show you how to do that here. You're going to grab your ear, and what I like to do is on the straight side, I want to fold it in about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to use my handy clips that I was telling you about earlier. So just take it about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm just going to take my clip and I'm going to clip it down. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do that with both of them, so we're ready to go. All right, now that we've got her ready to go, I want to put the pretty side fabric down. Remember, we're going to sew it down, and when we flip her inside out, the ear is going to go up like this. So if you're using cotton and you want to use that, make sure it's pretty sides down. The straight side, I put on the inside, if that's a good way for you to remember. There is a middle spot on your placement stitch, and you just want to make sure that you are putting your ear in the middle of this spot so they're even. I'm going to go ahead and take my clip off, and I'm going to place this down and make sure she's even. Our fabric tape is going to come handy to make sure that our ear stays secure when we take her back to the machine. So I'm just going to make sure everything is set, and we're going to come back to the embroidery machine and stitch her in place. All right, so we just finished our second ear, and now what we're going to do is take our backing, whatever you've selected. I'm doing a Minky, and we're just going to place right side down, wrong side up, and we're going to stitch the back. All right, so she is all done. I've brought her over to my table, and now we're just going to unhoop our little bunny. And the first thing I like to do is actually turn her over and remove all of the stabilizer. Again, I am using a tearaway stabilizer from Sulky, so I'm just going to go ahead and take that off. And you guys, I told you how much I like my purple thing, and I use this all the time to get in and just start my tear from my stabilizer. They're great for kind of those difficult spots that maybe you can't get into. So I'm just going to remove all the stabilizer, and then we're going to turn her around. Let me just do the eyeball there. How cute is she? So we're going to turn her around. It's kind of hard to see, but I have my stitch line here. I'm going to trim around about 1/8 of an inch all the way around my bunny body, but I'm going to come down here about 1/2 an inch, and this is actually where I'm going to fold it in when we stuff her. So I'm just going to go straight up, and I'm just going to take my time and go along my stitch line. So one thing I found when I was making these bunnies, I made like 4 of them very quickly. I just think they're such fun little in the hoop projects, perfect for spring decor. I think, you know, like I said, an Easter basket. But if you visit Parker on the Porch and you have fallen in love with this project, I promise you, she has so many other stuffies that you'll want to check out. And actually, all of her designs are adorable. We will do more of her designs in the future, I promise. And then I actually have too much of a tail here, so I'm going to go in and just trim it down. So everything's trimmed up. I'm excited. We have all the stabilizer off, and now we're gonna flip her inside out. All right, so we have our tape on here still from when we had our ears tucked. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the tape. And now we still have our water soluble, but that's okay. I'm gonna use my purple thing and come right in here, and the stabilizer comes right off. And look at how adorable this little bunny is. She's so cute in her little ears. So really the final step that you have is to stuff her. And I'm just gonna stuff her with some of the polyfill that I have. This is really preference on how much you wanna stuff her. You know, usually you have a chopstick or maybe your fingers, but what I like to do is just get in and really like get the filling in so it gets in all the corners. Because I like them really stuffy. I like them full. So it's really preference. And don't forget the bottom. We are going to tuck this in, and this is what she's going to look like. So just make sure that you're putting in enough stuffing that it's not going to let the bottom be a little flat. I just think there's so many options with these little stuffies with all the different fabrics that are out there, the cottons, the minkies, the fleece. You can personalize these if you wanted to put a name on the belly before you did the applique, and even the ears. You really could just do so much. So I think I like her just like that. Now, well, you know me, I probably could just put a little bit more in. And so really all we need to do now is to close her up. And so I usually just tuck my tails in. I'll use my handy little clips. Now whether you are hand sewing or using the fabric glue, the clips are really nice because it just gets everything in position. I'm actually opting the liquid stitch because I am in a mode to stitch out some more of these fun things. And so it's very easy to use this. It's just like glue. And usually what I like to do is kind of start in the middle a little bit and then work my way out. And literally I just put a dab of glue in here. So just a dab of glue. And then I'm actually going to take my clip and put her right back on, because I want that to set, and then I probably would let it set for about 20 to 30 minutes, and I would take the glue all the way down and put the clips right back on, and in about 20 minutes I can take it off, and this is what she looks like. She is all glued up. So while this little bunny is setting, because I glued her up, I didn't sew her, whoops, I want to thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. If you want more of these tutorials, let me know in the comments below. What projects do you want to make? Because I love in the hoop projects on the embroidery machine, especially the Juki side. So let me know in the comments below. Visit Juki Junkies for all of the supplies that I mentioned today. And of course, if you're local, Gigi's Fabric Shop is your go-to. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any more fun tutorials like we did today. Until next time, I can't wait to see what you're stitching.